Hello, and welcome to the show. I'm David Dadakian, owner of Eat Drink Rhode Island, and with me tonight is my good friend, Susan Denice. Here she is, and I'm going to switch us back to the two of us, and there we are. Hello,
Hi.
Susan.
Hello. Happy Sunday.
It's nice to see you, as it is.
I know. Nice to see you too.
Yeah, it's been a long and interesting time, but here we are. I mean, it's always good to connect with folks at these times. So, you're episode 2. So the technology has proven to work. So, so we can just go into this and have a great interview and learn all about you and have some fun. I want you say hello and give a little introduction about yourself there.
Oh God, that's right off the bat.
Yeah, well.
Hi everybody. Susan Denice here, as we all know. And I think maybe I've known David for 15 years and working in the hospitality industry together quite some time on numerous things, mostly events. But I've been living in Westerly for about close to 15 years now too, working in different aspects of the hospitality industry. And now I'm at a beautiful crossroad looking for something new. So this should be an interesting interview.
Well, it's an interesting year. It's an interesting time.
It is, yes.
Everything is interesting, yes. And we've got a lot of people watching here and a lot of nice comments coming across. So that's great. So if people see me glancing over here to the side, I'm not ignoring Susan by any means. I'm just trying to see who's talking, who's asking what questions. And I appreciate all the kind words, Andrea, on how
Andrea. I love Andrea Fazio. She always makes me.
She's my Wednesday night guest. I can't wait. But tonight is all about you.
Oh, good.
And so you gave your where you are. Your sort of bio. But so you grew up in Rhode Island.
I did grow up in Rhode Island. Yeah, I mean, kind of all over the place. I grew up mostly in Gloucester, so it was really nice to hear Derek's interview the other day and talk about Apple Valley and Smithfield. I grew up in the next town over, but we certainly frequented Apple Valley in my high school days because I went to Pontiganset. And but I've lived in Cranston, Providence, East Greenwich, Pawtucket, Westerly, Warwick. I mean, I've kind of been all over the state. And now I'm currently residing in Westerly, which I absolutely love. And I think people keep wondering when I'm going to move back to Providence, and it hasn't happened yet. When I first moved here, I kept telling everybody that I was going to move right back. And now almost 15 years later, I haven't even left the apartment that I moved in.
I was going to say, I mean, for as long as I've known you, that's your place.
Yeah. And it's funny. I moved around a lot, even after high school. And when I went to school and with my careers, I moved around a lot. And I moved here and I haven't gone anywhere in a long time. I've lived in like upstate Massachusetts on the line of Vermont and Florida, North Carolina, New York City, mostly here on the East Coast. And so I'm definitely an East Coast girl at heart. And Rhode Island, of course. And again, listening to Derek's interview the other night, Rhode Islanders are true Rhode Islanders that kind of they leave and they come back, or they just never leave. And it's just due to the fact that there's just so much goodness kind of going out there as far as the beaches, and then into the being able to hike and having all 4 seasons in New England. And I absolutely love it. So, I'm here. I mean, you want me to talk about my background, David?
Well, I mean, let's stick with your family first, because we have a viewer from Puerto Rico. Who was asking you to move there. So who's that?
My sister lives in Puerto Rico. Bless her. She's been through a rough go at it too. Never mind hurricanes and earthquakes, but now they're dealing with this on their own time. Yeah. And she works in the hospitality industry as well. So that's interesting. She works with a restaurant in Rincon, Puerto Rico. And I know a lot of Rhode Islanders have gone to Rincon, not only to see her, but also because they see her there. And so it's really been such a nice thing for her and for our family to be able to go there, because there, as much as Rhode Island is beautiful, there is so much else out there to see. Right. So I've brought my son there. My whole family goes there every single year to go visit. And I mean, it couldn't be a more relaxed, chill environment there, which is what we all need. So
yeah, it sounds wonderful.
Yeah. And of course, everybody knows my sister, because we're not only are we close, but we're close in age. And so she's worked with me on a lot of events when I worked at Jonathan Edwards. And I mean, we pretty much go everywhere together when she lives in this area. So everybody knows that it's like a package deal when she's around. So, yeah.
I just, obviously I call her Kristen, but I know her in my head as Chrissy.
Chrissy. I mean, she's the complete opposite of me. She's not tightly wound. She's very, she's super positive and happy all the time. And I'm definitely more of a realist and to the point and quite blunt at times, which I'm sure that most everybody knows me doesn't find that to be a surprise. So.
And you mentioned your son. How old is Max now?
Max is 4 and a half.
Yeah, it's been a few months. Jeez, yeah, it's been a few months since
Don't get me started on that one. Oh my God, I'll cry.
It's adorable.
I'm in the stage of quarantine where crying is just a daily thing now. In a good way, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot being around your children 24/7. That we can all admit that. That's that's a fact.
It is, I mean, obviously I have shared custody, and I have, obviously Max's dad and I are, we co-parent just quite well, and Max is getting the best of both worlds on that. And so, he has somewhat of the luxury during all this of being able to go to 2 different homes and not have to be in the same home all the time. So he gets a different view. He's definitely 4, and he's definitely a, toddler boy, and he gets into everything, and he is aggressive isn't a good word for him. He is all over the place. And so I feel very old around him lately, but we've been like this, and we've definitely been, let's do this. We've definitely been like that. And we have grown so much closer doing this. And I think if he is one of those kids I'll remember, he'll definitely remember this time. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think this type of thing will shape their memories, definitely. Yeah, and Moira and I are very similar. We, she'll cuddle with me on the couch and watch a movie, and then, an hour later we'll be fighting about something. So,
Yeah. And you have to just roll with that. I mean, some days I'm literally like, cousin, I give up. Like, I have to like lock myself in the bathroom or something like that. And then there's some days we can't get enough of one another. So, I mean, it's just like anybody, I guess.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But these are ours, and we have to protect them too.
I know. It was one of those things, like when this all happened, I really struggled with the idea of going in to work, and making sure that I was doing the right thing. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that's weighed on me this entire time is I know I'm doing the right thing, but it just feels heavy. So, but hey, we're not here to be heavy. So
no, let's be a little lighter. Let's talk. So when I first met you,
yep,
and for many years,
oh my goodness, yeah,
this was the brand.
Yeah.
This was the brand.
Oh, I love that brand.
That was associated with Susan. We still love this brand, of course. I mean, even if you're not working there, you still love the brand and love to drink it. So yeah, I think it's safe to say,
yeah,
not just because of this brand, because of our own friendship, but it's safe to say, over the 8 festivals that I've had, after my wife Brenda, you're probably the third most, after myself and Brenda, the third most important event part of my festivals. So this was certainly a small part of the event part of the festival. So let's pour ourselves some JE. I've got some Cabernet Franc here. What have you got?
I don't have any JE right now. Oh, it's so bad.
Oh, that's okay.
Let me see. I'm going to go with, okay, so I told Steve Wynn about this the other day. Avia Wine Bros does this. This is that Pet's Not natural wine from Maine. I think it's Cayuga and Saval, but it's got that little beautiful spritz to it, sparkly.
Right. Little spritz to that. I know. I've had that.
Do this. We go like this.
Shall we? Shall we give the color? Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And
I haven't had the Cabernet Franc in a while.
neither have I. Yeah, I stay close with those guys. Do you want to go back to the beginning? Want to hear the story?
Yeah. Yeah. How'd you end up? Well, first of all, before we get to that, let's point out also, we mentioned hospitality, wine, events, but you're also, it's interesting because our paths they never quite collided, but they were quite similar. You were a photographer in New York for a while.
Yeah.
I did my photography here in Rhode Island, but lived in New York for a while.
Yeah.
And you also perform occasionally.
Occasionally. Yeah.
And so you're many, many different hats, many different hats.
We're learning so much right now.
That's the beauty of the show. That's what
There's a lot of stuff I just don't talk about. I mean, I talk about a lot with my friends, but yeah. I grew up in a theater household, and so my sister was the opposite. She didn't really do very much theater. But I was fine with it. I mean, my mom is a pretty shy person, although she's been producing, directing, and acting in theater for 60 years. And she kind of was like, saw me as the one where she was like, yes, I'm going to make this one a theater kid. And so it kind of just, it definitely got into my blood, and I did a lot of theater. But then after that, I sang in some cover bands and jazz bands. And I love it. I did some vocal training. It's not something I do all the time now. The last time I sang was at my mother's retirement party, and I was pretty proud of myself. I did Don't Rain on My Parade. Yes. So, yeah, but yes, I went to school for photography. It's funny because people, with the time on their hands that they have right now, are going through photographs. And so somebody posted some photos the other day of us in high school, and I don't know, there's a slew of them with me in it, and every single one of them, I have a camera in my hands in high school.
Nice.
And so I ended up following that path. I was very lucky to know what I wanted to do at a young age. I think that some people really search for a long time. And I feel kind of blessed to kind of be one of those people that was like, I know exactly what I want to do, and I know where I want to go with it. And my parents were extremely supportive of it. So I went to a couple of photography schools and wound up in New York City. And I did quite well for myself there, photographing catalogs for Neiman Marcus and Lord & Taylor and Macy's, and started the Chico's catalog when it first came out way back in the day. Did some work for a freelance photographer that I know a mutual friend knows, Bill Diodato, doing some stuff at Victoria's Secrets. And so the career was great. I wasn't in love with it. I was in love with it for what it was at the time, but I was definitely more of a photojournalistic documentary person, really just something deep. And all those 20-something-year-olds, they really just want to figure out the world. And right. I wasn't any different. So I moved back to Rhode Island to do a master's in art education. And I went to Rick, and I think that's kind of where the switch came. I was probably 30 at the time. Gosh, how old am I now, David? I'm 30.
I'm 48.
I'm 45.
Yeah,
oh my God, I think 45. I'm 45.
Yeah. You're 3 years younger than me. I was wait a minute.
How old I am anymore.
Yeah, I get it.
I was 30, and I moved back. I moved to Providence after 9/11, and it was a really hard time. I was extremely close to 9/11, as I know we've talked about this, and I worked very closely to the World Trade Center, and I lived close to the entire thing. So it was definitely one of those transition times that I'll remember for the rest of my life. But I came back to do some stuff for art education so that I could teach photography. And I just happened to start working at a restaurant. I worked at Rue de l'Espoir, and I worked there during the day and went to school at night. And I worked under Deb Norman at Rue de l'Espoir for years while I was trying to make it through school. And the switch just sort of happened. I think it was, we had a wine rep, his name Vinny, and oh my God, his last name is going to escape me, and this is horrible, but he was a great wine rep, and I loved talking to him, and I loved, I had worked in restaurants before, but this was more of me kind of curating something of wine lists and bar programs and all that. And I remember having a breakup, and he said to me, "No, you need to do? You need to take a vacation." He told me to go to Sonoma, and he kind of hooked me up with a bunch of people out there. And I spent some time out in Sonoma, just kind of wandering around aimlessly drunk. But I fell in love with the vineyard experience. It was literally like love at first sight.
Yeah, Sonoma's a phenomenal spot.
And I met some people, and I realized right at that time how much I loved talking about the culture of enjoying a meal, the ingredients in a meal, the way that people can sit together and, very traditionally said, break bread together and learn something about one another and start off as strangers and end up as friends. And then learning about wine. I was just floored learning it in that way. So I wasn't somebody who learned it on like book knowledge. I was somebody who learned it from the experience part of it, which is usually how I learn, and also learning it from an actual winemaking vineyard concept versus like working for an all-out distribution company. So it was an interesting way. So the farming aspect really got my bug, and then the culture of the Sonoma area, where everyone was just consumed by eating together, drinking together, growing this together, and being very local together. And I came back to Providence, and I just literally switched careers. I had been doing photography like since a sophomore in high school, and I came back and I contacted a couple of local wineries around the area, and I asked if they were looking for volunteers on the weekend, and that I was looking for something to increase my knowledge. And I happened to I probably faxed. Did I fax somebody? I don't know. I might have emailed. I don't remember. And I sent my resume over, and somebody called me, and they basically said they think I sent my resume to the wrong place. And I said, no, I'm sending it to the wineries. And they said, why don't you come in and we'll talk? And so I sat down with Erica, who is the events manager there and still is. And we chatted, and she asked if I wanted to come work a festival. And I was like, absolutely. And so I came to a spring festival, and I think it was 2006, something along that lines. And I absolutely loved it. I loved the culture. I loved the people there. I loved talking about wine with people. And for a long time, I felt very embarrassed to talk about this because I didn't know very much about it. And so this was an opportunity for me to grow. And I left school with about a year's left of a master. And I started working at Jonathan Edwards. And I worked there for 13 years. Yeah. So I absolutely love it. I love my coworkers. We still talk. Everyone in that environment is near and dear to my heart, and I love what they do. And I have such an appreciation for the actual farming of grapes and how Mother Nature and us have to work together. And then I loved the connection from when I started distributing the product for them to the restaurant industry. And I absolutely fell in love with the restaurant industry more from that point on, working with chefs and owners one-on-one. So not like being able to be in the kitchens and with the servers and really seeing the underbelly of it and the science of what makes an amazing experience. And I just since that point, I've really just been gung-ho about the industry as a whole. So.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I understand completely.
Yeah.
It's intoxicating in its own way, the wine aside. But
and then I met you.
Yeah, so we met. Yeah, I remember it. I do. It was one of those multi-chef events that we've done many times.
Yeah.
Over the years. It was 2007, I guess, because you was about a year after you started. And we've just started.
Was it Viking?
What's that?
Was it Hotel Viking?
Yes, it was the Hotel Viking. You were
Longest
correct.
dinner ever.
That's right. That's right. That's it. I just kept hanging out in the back and talking with you.
I think it was like 6 hours the dinner went on.
It was something like that. I was writing and photographing, and you were there obviously with the wine, and 10 chefs. Lots of great. I still have the pictures on the computer there. I mean, it was a great time. My friend Joe, who I still talk to this day, of course, was there. All the chefs are there. I still talk to. Champ, Rick, Matt Januso, Bo, Derek. Derek was there. Yeah, lots of good.
And now here's the thing about Derek is when he started telling his story about opening Nick's, I remember it like it was yesterday, because when he said 2001 or 2002 when it actually opened, I think something like that, I was one of his first customers. And I don't even know how I stumbled across, but I came in and there was just this one little tiny, counter, this one bar.
Yeah, I'm sure people remember the original Nick's on Broadway. Yeah,
he was just like he was so happy for everybody to be there, which he still is. And but I was like hooked, absolutely hooked. And it was one of those more first experiences where people really cared about the food they were giving you. And I would go in all the time, this like tofu bagel sandwich or something that they had, and it was just ridiculous. And I've been following him ever since. And so it's great that our paths have crossed the way that they have, because I remember just like this young little guy, probably the same age. So, I'm thinking like, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden just more places just started popping up like that. So
right. Yeah. This was before I moved back here. So I was still living in New York at the time until 2003 before he opened. But when I came back in 2003, it was still he was it. Obviously New Rivers was here since 1990. Okay. But yeah, right around 2003, 2004, you got Chez Pascal and Farmstead. They opened, trying to think, Persimmon out in Bristol. And then, there's so many places.
Was still there, yeah. Gracie's was still up on the hill at that point.
Yeah, probably. I didn't first encounter Gracie's until it was downtown in 2005. That's actually how I got into this whole business, was Ellen bought my photos.
Oh, little known fact, I used to work at Gracie's. No.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, I love Ellen, and Ellen and her staff are like family.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful group. It's a testament to her business, how great Gracie's and Ellie's are, and the people there, and lots of great people have gone through there.
Yeah.
So, and then it'd be remiss not to talk about Blackbird Farm with you, because you've been part of everything we've done at the farm pretty much for the last 12 years. I think I've been with the farm now, and all the cooking classes and dinners.
A blast there.
It's a wonderful experience all the time. I can't say enough about it. But because of people like yourself, or other people come along with it, I think was the last dinner we did there with you. You didn't come to Rick's dinner, right? No, that was Rick
Alaire?
Yeah.
I didn't.
No, Steve came. Steve Wynn came.
I remember Steve came. Yeah, Rick Alaire is really one of my most favorite chefs in Rhode Island too. So I'm always bummed to miss his fish dinners. But yeah, I mean, I always loved, like, the part of the job that I think I loved the most was just not so much of like sponsoring these events, but getting involved in these events that spread the word. Right. And I was always game for that. I was always game for, like, especially in the beginning when I was trying to get the Jonathan Edwards name out there, was if there was an opportunity to be working with chefs or something that was more than just a tiny little general public, then great, that's good too. But then I started also realizing that the general public is going to buy your wine in the liquor stores too. So spreading the word was literally just like, I slept. It was everything, all the time. I was talking about Jonathan Edwards. So, and I think everybody knew that. Some people would ask me if I own the place, which is kind of laughable. But when you
when you were at the events and I had to do the spiel.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so they grow Chardonnay, Gewürztraminer, and Pinot Gris in Connecticut. Oh, Cabernet Franc is the red they grow in Connecticut. They are these grapes, and I do the whole spiel, and people are like, "Are you part of Jonathan Edwards?" And I was like, "No, just." I just know what they do, and I've got the thing down, and here's to John and building and his family for building that business.
And they're doing pretty good. They are still open every day, 1 to 5, doing like curbside stuff and for bottles. And they're doing their shipping, from what Don Rogers is telling me, is just doing fantastic.
Oh, sure.
So that's great. And John and Melissa are delivering to people's homes themselves. And I know some people got to think that's just the best thing. Jonathan Owens is going to come to my house.
It's true. People love that stuff. I mean, even
they do. It's the same thing, like working at Revival was the same thing. Like everybody wants to see Sean,
right?
And where's Sean? And when I worked at Jonathan,
I don't know if I ever told you the story. This is a funny story. This is going back, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years ago. It was what's the brew fest that roads on the Patuxent? It used to be a road, now it was at Waterfire, but the one that Brian Oakley does. Oh
boy, we're gonna get in trouble.
I'm blanking on the name of it.
Nirvana.
Thank you, Beervana. So it was the night of Beervana. It also happened to be the night of Tim Deshane's birthday. Okay. And Tim and Kristen Deshane, and my wife Brenda teach school together. So we all met up afterwards at What Share Tavern right there by Road to the Patuxent. And you'll appreciate this. Okay. We were out of the truck. Rocket truck was outside. Brenda got a burger. I got a burger. Sean came over from Rhodes, saw Brenda's burger, took it and took a giant bite out of it.
Oh gosh, that sounds about right.
Right, and wandered off. So Tim was behind us, comes up to us, and is like, "Do you know Sean?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's Sean. It's my buddy Sean. I've known Sean for years." And Tim's like, "Can you introduce me to Sean? It's Sean Larkin." And I was like, "Yeah, that's Sean Larkin." And, but that's it. That's how people are sometimes. And I was like, "Of course I can introduce you to Sean. Come on." And the rest is history. I mean, Tim's been with Revival, pretty much since that day. I think he after meeting Sean, but it was very funny to have that experience where he's like, it was like a little kid, like could you introduce me to Lucas?
Here's the thing. It's like, to me, like, okay, yeah, sure, we all get kind of starstruck, and living in New York and photographing some of the people that I've photographed and have met, and you're always a little taken back. I guess I don't really number one, like I don't get nervous about things like public speaking or interviews, so I also just kind of have this belief that people are just people. And as much as I love the chefs and I love the brewers and the whole 9 yards, it's just, it's kind of funny how we put them on this, pedestal. They are amazing people, but we're all just kind of people, and it should all be approachable. Right. Kind of like beer and wine should just be approachable and not be something that people find like it's, unapproachable, I guess. Like when I would talk about wine to people, I would make sure that the minute I started to see them kind of fade out, I would be like, okay, let's make this approachable again. Yeah. And it's just like with people, people would get crazy over John, or people get crazy over Sean. And you have to kind of laugh because, and it's the culture that they've built that people really love.
It's that brand and what they built, the product, everything around the product. Because it's something you drink and enjoy and love, and it's something interesting. I mean, when I worked in the entertainment business, so I used to run with celebrities all the time, and you definitely become not jade is not the right word, just accustomed to realizing they're just people too.
They're just people, and for the most part, they kind of, when the people get to that place, like I remember John, like sometimes, like I would say to myself, like, why did you put your name on that wine? And, there were times that there were events and John would just be like, oh, because it's like you always have to be on. Right. And God forbid, the same thing about doing an immense amount of festivals and events. And you know me well enough to know that, you sometimes you show up an event and I'm like, you look at me and I'm like, oh, I think I've had enough of this one. Mm-hmm. And it's just because you always have to be on. And the minute you're not on, someone takes that as like, wow, she was a real BITCH. Yeah.
Oh, no,
so if you're having a bad day, you can't have a bad day, right. So go have a bad day at home or something and then show up, whatever. But that's what happens when you're a bit more in the public eye. And so people like Sean and John and even yourself, gosh, I've had people come up to you when I'm with you and they're like, oh my God, I follow your Instagram. Yeah, they get all crazy.
It's
nobody does that to me, David.
That's not true. People do know you. That's not true at all. Many times you know that. You know that there. So is that's the oyster
I'm
river?
moving on to the Arnaise, by the way.
Ooh, that's
This is
nice
something
Arnaise.
I get at Savory Grape all the time. I absolutely love this grape.
Great.
This Arnaise.
You can't go wrong with Italian whites, truthfully. There's very few. I mean, some of the Pinot Gris, the Pinot Grigio in Italy, is a little mass marketed, blah, but for the most part, I love, and they're so good with food.
They're so good.
Falanginas.
I drink more white these days than I do red. I mean, mostly due to the fact that red just makes me really tired sometimes. Maybe it's because I drink too much of it, but whites, I love that. Somebody told me something about whites once, and it really stuck with me that, whites are so delicate, it's kind of hard to hide their flaws. And so for me, it's like I see that. Like sometimes you taste a really big, bold red, and that's what you're tasting. And sometimes you can hide some flaws within that. I'm not saying that anything that I'm drinking is bad, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
But I've been calling the Savory Grape during this time, and I just say like, hey, I wonder if they know my voice by now.
Probably.
And I just say, mix it up. I don't try and find some things on my profile. And the other day I called and ordered just some Cab Francs. I just said, just throw some Cab Francs in there from different areas. So I got one from California, one from Spain, and I have the lovely Chinon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that'll be drank tomorrow or something like that. So anyway.
I'm fortunate to have built not very deep, but a relatively deep wine fridges. I was going to say cellar, but they're wine fridges at my home. But we're getting through it. I mean, we're going through it. And it's funny, yesterday we opened up a 2008 Grand Cru Bordeaux. Mm-hmm. And it's just Saturday, and I don't even remember what I cooked. What did I make? Pork. I made some pork from the farm.
Yep.
And, part of it was, do I want to, I'm saving this. And then, but what are we saving it for?
Times like this.
I mean, it's a 2008. It could probably lay down a few more years, whatever. I opened it, we decanted it, and it was spectacular.
Yeah.
You think about, saving and the price point and things like that. But here we are. I mean, we're home.
Do you your wines to invest, or to sell later?
No, I've never. No, everything I buy, I want to drink. I don't. I mean, I guess if I could afford to buy cases of the same wine, but I rarely do that. At most I'll buy 3 to 6 of the same wine occasionally when I find something I like. And usually it's more inexpensive stuff that I can just have on a Tuesday night.
Yeah. I buy my wine to share with people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. There are certainly wines down there that, I'll open when it's, I'm by Christmas party or the summertime when I have people over, because I want other people to experience as well. And the beauty is, because, you've been, to my house for the parties, people like Steve or John Hyde or Jim Moskwa, friends of ours, they bring things that they want us all to try.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. And that's what, the thing with wine, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to, do I smell peppers? Well, yeah. I mean, we can do all that, but we can also just taste it and go, oh, that's nice. I like that. That's good. I like to drink this.
So people do tasting notes. And then that was one of the things about working events sometimes where you would talk about the wine. And so here's one of the things where there's a deeper subject of people can be influential. And so my goal was always to try to get them to see what they liked. Let's talk about what you like. So if I talk about the wines, the Jonathan Edwards wines, and I start describing the wines and they taste it and they don't get the same thing, well, they think they failed at wine tasting. Right. I keep saying, no, it's just exactly what you taste. So I stopped really talking about this is what the wines taste like. And I just started talking about how they were made. And then the other thing that I always found was how people can be, influential on it, which is great because they do want to be, for the most part, most of the festivals that we would do are people who wanted to gain more knowledge about wine for the most part, but they can be influenced by what you like. And so on any random day, if I were to pick, I like Jonathan Edwards Merlot the best, and 900 people coming up to the table asking me what my favorite is, and I tell them Merlot. Well, then 900 people walked away that day and their favorite was Merlot too. So I think the goal was trying to get people to just taste what they taste, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And so when people say, "What's your favorite wine?" I'd say, "What's your favorite wine?" And or what's your best wine? I said, "Our best wine is the one that you like the most."
I've heard this from you. I've heard this from you many times, and you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I would let them taste. Sometimes I would just say, "Taste a couple of these and tell me what you like the most."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, this one." I said, "Oh, well, great. I'm glad you like that one because I probably wasn't going to choose that for you." Yeah. And so there you found a brand new wine that you never knew about, and it's your favorite. So.
Right. Or you're at the table, and I've seen this either when I'm pouring or when I'm standing there behind you and you're pouring, and people come up and I don't drink whites.
Yeah.
Well, that's just, come on.
Remember when the whole sideways thing went in and the peanut
low?
Yeah. For everyone out there who may not be in the wine industry and doesn't quite understand, this is how Hollywood played an influence on you. So if you read the book, he says, first of all, he never says Merlot is bad, right?
No, never.
He doesn't drink Merlot is what he says. And he doesn't drink Merlot because his ex-wife drank Merlot. But he also said that she had the best palate of anybody he ever knew. And then the wine at the end of the movie, Merlot.
Yeah, Right Bank.
Yeah. So there you go.
Right Bank is Merlot based. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I've got the book around here somewhere. I also own the movie and the soundtrack. I think it's a brilliant movie. I love Paul Giamatti's fantastic.
The wine industry as a whole probably boomed, but I really wonder if Merlot growers saw a decline in sales because of that movie.
Oh, definitely. There were stories about that it was definitely a harder sell in California where the wine is on the grape.
It would literally cover their glasses.
The grape name is on the bottle.
Yeah. They would be like, "Oh no, I don't drink Merlot." Yeah. Have you seen the movie Sideways? That's what they say.
Yeah, no. And well, I mean,
I know. It's okay.
We all have our influences, I guess.
I know.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to talk about?
Oh, David, what are we doing now?
I'm doing the show.
Should I interview you for a minute? I'm just kidding.
Feel free. I mean, it's okay.
So I also do on this. I shouldn't say on the side, but my cousin and her family, they run that Watch Hill group. So I'm still doing stuff with them. Right. The Watch Hill group, they represent like manufacturing companies for the hospitality industry. Her husband, so it's Brenda and Jeremy Matola right here out of Westerly. And her husband, Jeremy, has had quite the career in the hospitality industry and sales, consulting, whatnot, all through, the world, actually. I mean, he's got a lot of international customers as well. So he now has a representative group, she does, Brenda does. And so I do some work with them. And we have a great line of products there, which is also great to just keep in the hospitality industry, keep my foot in there. So, I mean, it's anything from, beautiful plateware, chinaware, umbrellas. I mean, Jonathan Edwards bought some of the umbrellas, the Tucci umbrellas, beautiful.
You've got beautiful products. I've seen the line, yeah.
Oh, they're beautiful too, like the Frankie coffee systems, and like Weekapaug Inn and Ocean House does a lot with them. Gracie's does a lot with their products that they sell. So that's been kind of cool to kind of learn about that, because not only am I like learning about certain aspects of the industry when I was at Revival doing like being an operational manager there, but I was also learning about even more stuff of like, how different plates are made out of different materials. And so I almost saw it from an owner's perspective of like how, or see it differently of, which things are going to suit my business well and what image I want, like just plates alone or silverware alone create like just set a tone like you wouldn't believe. So yeah, that's been an interesting project. So I'm still doing that, but yeah.
That's fun. That's good.
Yeah. And those guys, so I'm finishing up that whole project with Revival, and they'll move on to much bigger and better things. So that's, as hard as it is for everyone involved, it's just, it's one of those things that you'll remember forever. And some businesses have made it through COVID and some have not, but the brand lives on. So that's the most important thing there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I finished, I think it's tomorrow. Maybe it's this week. I'm not quite sure. I did a 28-day.
Oh, right. Yes, you've been posting.
Challenge.
You've got to be close.
It's kind of weird to keep posting your workout videos, but I belong to Leanify Fitness in Westerly. They have one in Warwick, and it's mine is an all-female gym, but it's kind of like high-intensity interval training, and there's some CrossFit-y things that go on in there, and so I entered a challenge that they did kind of for home for all the for the people that are in the gym. And, you get a coach, and she's pretty bad ASS. I absolutely love her. She keeps me accountable, and I'm running, and it gets me outside. And it makes me accountable. And what I noticed is I'm running a lot, which I absolutely love, but it's like a meditation for me now. And I'm listening to these podcasts while I'm doing it instead of music. And I'm thinking, who am I? Like, I'm listening to these podcasts and learning things while I'm running. And so I've been listening to Rachel Hollis, and I like her, but she's an entrepreneur, and she talks about that. And she talks about what we should be doing during this time in an assertive way, but I'm an assertive person. So she says, like, you owe it to yourself to wake up every day and put your clothes on and get through this experience we don't want to come out of it and have to pull ourselves out of a hole. I mean, financially, we're going to have to, so many of us are going to have to do it anyway. Yeah. But emotionally, we should be stronger than we ever were, because that's what's going to help us in the end. Like we like being somebody who wants to be a leader, it's like people count on you. And so you actually have to count on yourself. So that's one thing that I've been doing during this time that I have to say, if I wasn't doing, I'm not sure. I mean, I might be one of those people who cries in the bathroom every day. I don't know.
That's okay. I mean,
and that's okay too. Yeah. That's okay. I mean, nothing's wrong with how you feel, right?
Exactly.
And some people have lost everything, or lost families, and lost businesses. And I have to consider myself pretty lucky, but I also know that there are people that struggle emotionally during this time. And I've been trying to do something for someone almost every single day, send flowers to somebody or drop off some wine to somebody. I dropped some beer off to a friend the other day, just put it on their doorstep. FaceTime my parents so they can see my son, just something that makes that day kind of not pass in a positive way. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all connected in some way. Rhode Island, it lends itself to that even more than other places. Mm-hmm. And there's no way to be alone. I mean, there's no way to be alone. Nowhere in the world could you really be alone. So, I mean, as long as we keep reaching out and communicating, and now there's, multiple different ways to communicate every day.
I mean, the amount of video conferencing has really just, I mean, obviously, if you own Zoom, you're probably doing pretty good right now. But the amount of video
Zoom stock.
Crazy. I've been trying to, as much as I can, support local and do many, and obviously local spans. I'm a Rhode Islander who doesn't mind driving to Providence. So
all the way to Westerly to Providence?
All the way to Westerly. I remember when I was working at Revival, some people would be like, when I would head out, and I would tell them I live 45 minutes away. They're like, what? I know people in Westerly who don't even want to drive to Charlestown. So anyway, I've been doing a lot of takeout and supporting some businesses. And the other day I went over to Sift, and I got some great stuff there from Adam Young and those guys over there. They're doing fantastic, and malted barley and a lot of sushi. And I mean, I'm just trying to do my thing. I mean, we get this stimulus, and, of course I put some of it away, but I also just try to reinvest it into the economy. So I think that's kind of.
Well, I think that's our nature is, not only is part of the hospitality, so, associated with this group of wonderful people, mm-hmm. But we also want to spend within this group of wonderful people. Yeah. Oh, I know.
What have you?
Let's see if we have any questions from folks here. Let me see. Got a lot of nice comments. A lot of very nice comments. Your sister saying how she's got the Jonathan Edwards spiel down too as well. Several people reminded us of Birvana, which we did get. Thank you. Of course, Andrea chimes in many times. We love you, Andrea. Can't wait for Wednesday, Andrea.
Oh my God, I can't wait for that.
She says she has a real question. All right, where is it? Where you say? Andrea says I have a real question, but
maybe she didn't post it.
Oh, her question is, do I have to spell out all of my swear words next week? Yeah, Andrea, you can swear, Andrea. It's okay. Susan,
I gotta tell you, my swearing has gone up, and I'm doing my best to make sure you don't get flagged on here.
Oh, it's okay. Derek swore the other day. My mother actually said to me, he swore, and I was like, "Don't watch it, Mom. What can I tell you? I don't know." But I also have
a lot of swear words.
Well, I have my questionnaire that I want to do every day because I don't know if you watched all the way to the end with Derek. I know you said you were listening to it. Well,
I did. Oh yeah. Okay, here we go.
This is the questionnaire that if you remember Inside the X Studio or you're French and you listen Bernard Prévost, that he came up with this and Lipton adapted it, and I've adapted it. I've got a couple extra questions in there too, but here we go. You ready?
Okay.
All right. What is your favorite word?
I immediately thought of my least favorite word. That's so terrible.
Well,
my favorite word is probably the F word. Yeah.
Okay. What's your least favorite word?
It just has such gratification. My least favorite word, moist.
Yeah, that's a popular least. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I just was talking about this today. I think that people that are struggling and can be vulnerable about it, and when you can talk to someone about their struggles and they're open enough to talk to you about it, it kind of puts us all in the same boat. And I find that for some reason, I find that inspiring, because if we can all feel like, we've talked about so many different things in the world. I remember when I started talking about having a miscarriage, and it was one of the things as a woman, but being able to talk about that with another woman and them saying oh, I had a miscarriage too. So that vulnerability and that struggle that people have is really something that I turn into a positive. It makes me want to write. It makes me want to listen to music. It makes me want to cook. And not that I want people to struggle, but the human aspect of being able to connect with somebody and talk to somebody about your struggles in life. So,
yeah, it's wonderful. What turns you off?
Ignorance. Small-mindedness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is your favorite curse word?
Yeah, that's the F-bomb. Yeah.
What sound or noise do you love?
My son laughing.
Yeah. Ooh. What? That's beautiful.
Oh, I know. It's so good. Okay.
What sound or noise do you hate?
When he screams. Because it's so high-pitched.
Yeah. I get that.
No, I shouldn't say it's my least one, but it's pretty close. So, yeah.
What is your favorite ingredient?
Mushrooms. I love mushrooms.
That's a good one.
Absolutely love mushrooms. I probably eat them every single day. So.
Wow.
And they're versatile. And I like umami flavor. So, yeah.
Excellent. And your least favorite ingredient?
Sun-dried tomatoes. Yuck. Yeah,
there was that time there in the late 90s when that was on everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I like almost everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing, you and I have had so many meals together. There's nothing I won't try. I love to eat. And I love to be creative in eating, but for some reason, sun-dried tomatoes have literally no place in my diet. So
I hear you.
Yeah.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Teacher. Yeah. Sometimes I thought maybe nurse, and then it's a little maybe too jumping on the bandwagon here with everything that's happening. But I've always really been I've always admired nurses and school teachers. They're just a different breed. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely true. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
As a husband teacher, I can tell you. Yeah. What profession would you not like to do?
I would not like to be a debt collector. That seems pretty easy.
Thought about that one.
Or maybe like, I don't want to be famous. That seems like such a lot of work.
You're right.
Yeah.
And then lastly, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Probably something like, thank goodness you stopped talking.
No.
I mean, not what I want him to hear. That's probably what he would say. But what would I want him to say? I don't know. Maybe thank you. I don't know. I hope that I'm out there doing something good, so I hope that he just like is thankful that, he has people out there that are doing something good. So.
Well, you certainly are. You've certainly been good in my life for the last 13 years. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. You too. I mean, I immediately thought of one of like probably my more favorite David moments is that after I had Max, you were one of the first people to show up at the hospital. And I remember Scott saying like, oh my God, you have a lot of friends. I mean, not only like the baby shower alone or just Max's birthdays or whatever, like my going away party for the winery, like Scott was always like, I cannot believe how many friends you have.
You're loved.
I guess it's a good thing, but you were the first person to show up at the hospital. I think the first person to show up at the hospital.
Wow.
And that was pretty awesome. You did bring some sort of like food set for Max.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I do remember that.
Dog and it had like
the little wooden thing. Yeah. Of course I did. Yeah.
So anyway,
that's who we are.
Yeah, good.
Well, thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The comments are rolling in, so we can go and check those out afterwards. Okay. Thank you all out there for watching. Please join me Wednesday at 8 p.m., Wednesday, April 29th at 8 p.m. for my interview with our friend, Andrea LaFazia.
Yeah.
Who's currently a troupe.
So excited.
And, yeah, that's gonna be fun. I told her I wanted to sing a song because
yeah. We could have done it together. Oh, that would have been awesome.
I will have to do a joint one soon, okay?
She's swearing on my messages.
Yeah, of course. But thank you again, Susan.
All right, thank you so much.
Hang on here while I shut everything down, and we'll say goodbye. Thank you all for watching.
Bye.